So I've made an app called Xharktank where the entrepreneurs can pitch their ideas and the investors can see all those pitches and can decide to counter offer a pitch. And yeah, so I've made this app using Node.js and the database is MongoDB. This app is currently running on port 8081. So the routes file contains all the API endpoints, and this is db.js file. It contains the database. It connects to the database, and we have one model. So basically we need a schema for the pitch so that the database knows what kind of a body is going to store inside it. So the pitch schema is this. It contains entrepreneur string, pitch title, it is also of type string, pitch idea type string, ask amount, it's going to be number, equity is also going to be number, offers it's going to be an array, and the default will be that offers will be empty initially, so the default will be an empty array. All the fields are required, that means they're essential, except this offer field. It will be posted by the investor later on. So now the routes contains all our endpoints in this pitches file. So the first endpoint which we have created is for posting a pitch inside the database. We are using post method, and this is for checking the data types of all the body which the user is posting. So entrepreneur is going to be string, all these things are going to be string, ask amount and equity are going to be numeric. We have to run this asynchronously, otherwise it will give an error, as it takes some time to fetch and to save something in the database. Validation request, it will return inside the error. If the data type is not correct, then we are going to return invalid request body. Or some of the edge cases like equity is less than 0 or the equity is greater than 100, then also we are going to return invalid request body. Otherwise we are going to save the pitch and then return the pitch id from here. So let's try this. So I've made this sample pitch, and if I use this, yeah, so it the pitch gets created and the id is returned. So let's save this id as we're going to be using it later. And if I make some changes, like if I make it 1000, equality cannot be 1000, so it should return bad request. Yeah, it's returning bad request. So this endpoint is working fine. What else? Let's see the next endpoint. So we are fetching a particular pitch from the database using pitch id. So it will use get method, again running asynchronously. We'll fetch the pitch id from the url, and then we'll find that pitch id in the database. If pitch id is not present, then it will return pitch not found. Otherwise we are going to return that particular pitch only. So let's try this endpoint also in this pitch id. Yeah, so I've like added any arbitrary, no, like I should add some arbitrary pitch id. Let's see what it returns. It should return bad request. Yeah, not found, of course, not found, pitch not found, as I've made up this pitch id. It is not valid pitch id. Let me enter valid pitch id for the pitch we just created. So let me try. Yeah, so it has fetched the pitch for me. Okay, status is okay, and the pitch is here. So let us see the next endpoint. Next endpoint is for the investors to create a counter offer for a particular pitch. So it will use the pitch id. So pitch id we are going to again fetch from the url only, and also we are validating the body. If the investor's name is not string, or equity is not numeric, or the equity is greater than 100, or it is less than 0, or the amount is less than 0, then we are going to return invalid request body. Otherwise we are going to find that pitch. If the pitch is not there in the database, then also we are going to return pitch not found. If the pitch is present, then we are going to generate a random offer id, and then we are going to push that new offer made by the investor inside the offer array, which is present inside that particular pitch. It can be used using this find by id and update, and then we'll return the pitch id of that particular pitch. So let's try this endpoint. So now let's try and run this. So I've added the pitch ID, and yeah, so it is created and the ID is returned. So now we can try and do some errors here, like let me try and pass ABC here. ABC, let's see what happens. Bad request, invalid request body, it's returning. And if I add some arbitrary ID here, then also it's not working. So yeah, this endpoint is also working fine. Now let's move towards next endpoint. So the next endpoint is for returning all the pitches from most recent ones to the least recent ones. And we are returning the pitches from the database. That's why we are going to use get method. And we are getting the pitches from the database using this find method. Then sorting it according to the ID. And -1 we have used for sorting it in descending order. So the least recent ones are going to be at the end. The most recent ones are going to be at the top. So for all the pitches in the pitch, for all the pitch in the pitches, we are going to use this, and we are going to push all the pitches one by one inside this pitches response, and at the end we are going to return this pitches response. So let me first create like one more page so that we can see if it's returning correctly or not. So I have, okay, what I have done wrong, yeah, so I have to add, we cannot add 1000 in the equity. So now it's created. So now let's call this endpoint. I called it previously, that's why it's returning like this. So now let me call it like this. Now it's returning 2 pitches, and I just created this pitch now. It's been returned at the top, and the pitch I created earlier, it's before that. And also that offer we can see, which we just created. So if I delete all the things from my database, I can do that. I'll try that. So if I delete, now my database is empty. I've deleted the pictures from the database. Now let's try and run this. It's running an empty array as there's no pitch inside the database. So yeah, this endpoint is also working fine.